So while I was trying to come up with ideas for this presentation, I remember getting a little bit confused about what to do and then taking a step back. I thought of the big question behind this whole thing. How have I changed? And I remember thinking, man, I wish I could just bring the old Rohan out here and let everybody see the change for themselves. That would be so much easier. And yet, here we are with only the new Rohan here with us. But that thought did give me an idea. I started to try to imagine what the old Rohan would say to me if he heard my new opinions. I wonder what I would say to him. Eventually, I wrote a script of a conversation between me, that's post TBB, and old Rohan, the person I was in June, right at the end of my freshman year in college. The script is meant to show where I was, where I am, and a little bit of where I'm going. And here it is. He walks up to the boy sitting at the counter. They exchange pleasantries, but the small talk doesn't last. I break the silence. So the host asks me an interesting question. Old Rohan replies sheepishly, yeah. What does it take for a person to be an agent of change? I asked. Hmm. Well, I press. Well, I think it's a loaded question, he starts. After a moment's pause, his eyes light up. He's found his point. It assumes that a person can create real, meaningful change. Confused, I ask in response, and you think that a person could not create change? He replies quickly, no, I think people can create change, but I also think that people cannot create meaningful change. His voice was high with passion, but he stayed slouching, arms crossed. How so? I asked, amused. Well, for starters, creating large scale change is hard. You have to get a lot of power behind your movement, which in this day and age is hard. Everything is so deeply rooted. The systems and channels of power are set so tight that it's almost impossible to break through. The one way you could is by using those channels and creating change using existing institutions. But on the path to there, most people lose their morals, lose their vision. And even if they do create change, more often than not, it just reverts. He sits back, eager for a reaction. I reply quickly, but you're making an assumption yourself. You're assuming change has to be large scale to be meaningful. The bout is on. He responds even quicker. That's not an assumption. I can fully justify that. Be my guest. Well, you can't claim to have created meaningful change when there are still millions of starving people out there. How can you call it meaningful when it hasn't even scratched the surface? I take a breath and begin. You know, there's a grain of truth to what you're saying, but I think you're being absolutist here. While I agree that large scale change is more meaningful, that doesn't mean small scale change is useless. I mean, look at Yao, my country director in Ghana. He's empowering young people and bringing healthcare to our community. Or Pipui, my host mom. She's leading an organic agriculture movement in Thailand. With a tinge of annoyance, he gives his reply. Agents of small scale change aren't really solving the ultimate problems. They're just working at the symptoms. And honestly, they do a pretty poor job of doing even that much. There's still so much hunger in Ghana, and there is still plenty of industrial farming happening in Thailand. I turn up the passion. You can't just ignore the impact they've had on these communities. They've affected hundreds, if not thousands, of people for the better. They've dedicated their lives to helping people. People like them change lives. They probably even save a few. Appealing to pathos, eh? That's cute, he says, visibly pleased with himself. Chuckling, I reply. Just because you can see through my modes of persuasion, that doesn't mean my point is any less valid. The fact of the matter is, small changes are meaningful. Yes, they're not earth-shattering, but at least they're doing something. And who knows, maybe their efforts add up to large-scale change. The banter quickens. It won't be enough. It's naive of you to expect mass participation. It's not impossible. It's improbable enough that it's a waste of time. I pause and ask with a grin. Okay, well, what do you have planned for the future that's so important that you have to prioritize it over creating small scale change. He leans back in his chair and gives me his sheepish laugh and defends himself. I'm busy. I'm in college. For now. He takes the conversation a step back. But you can't deny that in our case, striving to create large scale change is more efficient than striving to create small change, to the goal of improving things, of course. Pausing for a moment, I respond. I think that statement is up for far more debate than you realize. I have no clue where I stand on that, but clever attempts to switch tracks on my train of thought aside, the point remains. Some change is better than none. So why not create some? What's wrong with small scale change? Flustered, he tries to shift the focus. Nothing. I mean, I have an objection to the whole agent of change thing in the first place. Who am I to claim moral superiority and to try to create change along the lines of my ideology? Great point. While I agree with that, I still don't think it's an excuse for inaction, I respond. Well, I think it is, he says, a voice a little louder with conviction. Ideology is entirely subjective, after all. No ideology can truly, objectively claim to be better than any other. Quickly, I start. Okay, first of all, bad faith argument. I don't think you actually believe that. Would you really protest to someone trying to replace, I don't know, fascism with democracy? I mean, no, but he stutters a little before I cut him off. But it's an interesting thought. While that's true in theory, I don't think it makes any sense in practice. In the real world, people have real problems. Not everyone is cognizant of the subjectivity of the human experience. Everyone, yourself included, thinks and feels things that, to them, are objectively true. And how does that matter? He asks, a little confused. Because if people can create an illusion of objectivity, then people can be in situations that are, to them, objectively problematic. I reply, a little hesitant. But it's still not objectively objective, he says, eager for my response. Frustrated, I exclaim, that doesn't matter. Forget it. I was kind of just trying to explain something from this whack socialist book we read in Thailand. Honestly, I don't fully understand it either. He breaks the brief silence. Either way, there's still a problem with your argument. You're assuming change is meaningful. You're assuming anything is meaningful. In reality, nothing is meaningful. And if it's not meaningful, why bother? Why put in any effort? Nihilism? I ask with an air of disbelief. The truth, he replies with conviction. Feeling both disbelief and disappointment, I ask in return. So you believe nothing matters? Yes. Do you really believe that? Yes, it's true. Let me explain all of. No, 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 no. See, I don't think you really believe that. I was done listening to him. Like, yes, I understand the logic behind nihilism. And yes, the logic checks out. It makes sense. But I don't believe it because it's impossible to. It's impossible to live that way. Our brains aren't programmed to allow that. And how do you know that? He asked with a blank face. Because even you don't live that way. You're fired up by this conversation. Why? By your logic, this conversation shouldn't matter. Nothing should be able to create any emotions in you, yet almost everything does. Because as much as it makes sense, we as humans can't truly live that way. We can apply it to certain parts of our lives, as I'm sure you've done, but we can't apply it to everything. Something has to matter, and feeling emotions is proof of that. Having a reaction is proof of that. Existence is proof of that. If nothing matters, why are you here? In your own words, why bother? Why put in any effort? If you're hurting and nothing matters, why don't you just make the hurt stop? Why? I'm sorry. I just, no, you're right. I clearly still care about something, he says, as inconvenient as this is, but I don't, I don't know. You good? I ask with genuine concern. Yeah, yeah, I'm fine. Eager to shift a mood, I break the silence. Listen, we can debate philosophy all we want, but at the end of the day, only one thing matters. There's only one thing in life that matters: happiness. Happiness? That's such a loaded concept, he snaps, almost angrily. Okay, fulfillment, contentment, a high level of serotonin, call it whatever you want. Getting that cocktail of chemicals in your head just right. That's what matters. What's logical, what's real, none of that matters. Now, the hard part is figuring out how to get that cocktail just right. And I don't have the answer for you, but I know one thing for sure. Trying to live your life like nothing matters is not the answer. You seem to be doing pretty well for yourself. What did you do? I let out a deep sigh. I don't I don't know. Things kind of just worked out for me. I was lucky. Like, yes, I worked to get over some stuff, but I was lucky. He laughs and says, so I guess you still refuse to give yourself credit. I suppose I did have to work to change things. I was very intentional about a lot of things, and but still, sometimes I'll get caught up in all this subjectivity, objectivity stuff and get frustrated in the middle of nowhere. It's something I have to figure out. But my philosophy goes something like this. In my River of Life presentation and orientation, I visually described my nihilism with a blank page of paper. Nothing. Then, I described my current mindset with the bright red dot in the middle of a page. Something, I called it. I didn't know what the dot represented. I just knew it was there. That something was there. Genuinely concerned, I moved the spotlight to him. Anyway, how do you think things will work out for you? How are you doing? How do you feel? You do know there's no answer to it, right? To what? The whole objectivity, subjectivity thing. It's a big thought loop. Another sigh. He ignored the question about himself. I keep going. Yeah, I know. But the question I'm asking is more, how do I live with that? With asking questions and there not being any answers that satisfy me. I stop myself and say with a laugh, but look where we've ended up. Yeah, nowhere near agents of change. Nowhere near agents of change, he says, laughing with me. Well, what? Have I convinced you? Convince me about what? That being an agent of change is meaningful, I say, tired of his antics. Mm, nah, not convinced. Laughing, I joke. I guess we both still have Ma's stubbornness. I guess we do. He smiles, but without his eyes. Hey, Rohan, something's there. And that's all, folks. There you go.
Well done, Rowan.
You, Rohan. Like, what? Oh, here we go. Any further insight into what the something from your river could be?
I remember Aaron asked me this right after my river, and I was like, I don't know. I don't know. I think I originally wanted it to be something like really big, overarching, really meaningful. But I think over the course of the program, when I've been like my happiest, it's more like little things and like things that change every day. And I think that's like okay. I'm all right with that.
Great. What other questions do we have for Rohan? From Isaac. So, what's your why? What motivates you?
Um, what's my why? I don't know. I think like yes, this is a little bit scary, but at an ultimate level, like getting that cocktail of chemicals in your head, right? But I think like if you dig deeper, that's a lot more like complicated than it seems. Um, and like a part of getting that cocktail of chemicals in my head right is, I mean, at this point, it's probably like creating change because I would just feel shitty with myself if I didn't affect people for the better. So I suppose that, yeah. Oh, Dylan hitting me with the real questions.
Yeah,
What am
so what
I
are you
going to
going to
study?
study, and
Oof.
how do you plan on being an agent of change?
Oof. Well, I plan on studying either political science or international relations, but I'm not sure where yet. I applied and I still have to make the decision. Um, but yeah, how do I plan on being an agent of change? Not sure yet. Still figuring that out. Still figuring out where to go to college, I think. Little steps.
Baby steps in that
hmm
direction.
hmm
Rohan, would you consider yourself to have grown in optimism over the course of this program?
Yes, I have. Will give that. I'll concede that to you.
I'll be quiet.
Wonderful. Any other questions for Rohan? Well, I will say that that was a very creative take on a presentation of learning. I really, really enjoyed your narrative and kind of going back and forth. So thank you so much.
Cool. Thank you.